Planning Commission meeting here at 6 o'clock, Monday, May 23rd, 2022. If I could, have everybody join me for the pledge, and we'll keep this moving. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Roll call, please, Abby.
Filkins,
Here.
Bunce,
Here.
Bosher,
Here.
Bauman,
Here.
Putvin,
Here.
and Rice.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. If everybody had a chance, so approval of the agenda again here for May 23rd, 2022.
So moved.
Support.
Rice,
Yes.
Bosher,
Yes.
Bunce,
Yes.
Bauman,
Yes.
Filkins,
Yes.
and Putvin.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if everybody had a chance to, our last meeting approval of February 28th, 2022, meeting minutes. For those in the public that follow us, we have not been here since then, till tonight. So that's, in case you missed us, that's why. So anyway,
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Bauman, again, please.
Bauman,
Yes.
Bunce,
Yes.
Filkins,
Yes.
Putvin,
Yes.
Rice,
Yes.
and Bosher.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, this evening we have a public hearing. This is a special land use for a marijuana micro business located at 1649 Leeson Avenue, Cadillac, Michigan, of course. And having read that, Mr. John will take it from here.
Yes, this is a case that will have a public hearing. I'll give a overview of the project, and then Jeff Dotson, who's representing the applicant, will take over if he thinks I've missed anything or he needs to clarify a few points, and then we could open the public hearing after that.
Okay, sounds good.
So the applicant representative is Jeff Dotson, who is here this evening. The license holder is Michelle Clark. The property owner is Eli Hofert, and requested use is a marijuana micro business. Michelle Clark, under the business name of Golden Shores Provisioning Center, applied to the City of Cadillac for a marijuana micro business license to be located at 1649 Leeson. The Marijuana Committee reviewed and approved the license on June 28, 2021. This use will occupy the north 5,000 to 6,000 square feet of the building that is also currently occupied by Maverick Mechanical. This picture shows you the aerial photograph. The building in the center is the one that we're talking about, and the top side of the building, or the north side, is where the facility would be located. You can also see here that there's 2 truck wells, and I'll show you the land uses in just a minute. The subject property is located at the southwest corner of Leeson and 13th Street. Land on 3 sides, which would be to the west, to the south, and to the east of the property, are all in industrial uses. Land to the north of the site is in either heavy commercial or industrial uses. So very similar uses throughout the area. The north side of the building, nothing really happening on the north side of the building. Most of the activity connected to this application will all be on the west side, and actually more on the photograph to the left, which shows the north half of the building on the west side, and I just showed the balance of the west facade on the picture to the right. This is a little bit closer view of the area that we would be talking about in terms of they're taking out this truck well, resurfacing it to grade. taking out the overhead doors, and you'll see the facade rendering, which shows some walk doors being added in that area. This is the actual site survey, but we're not going to be seeing alteration of the site grading, so the typical things that we would be concerned about in terms of getting drainage reviews and all of that type of thing are really not applicable here, as the site will not be changing other than the filling in of the truck well on the north side. At the time that I put this presentation together, my knowledge was that the only thing that would be changing is the truck well to the north. The applicant has since come in with a site plan drawing which shows not changes to the site per se, but does show some added information with respect to parking spaces as to how they would set that up. And I can let him address that when I finish my review. But overall, no new paving, no major grade alterations for the site. And as per state requirements, I know this would be hard to read, but they have all the typical rooms that the state requires in terms of the vestibules and security areas and different rooms that they have to do their retail as well as their grow facility. And a micro business has both a small grow facility component and a retail component together. These doors show 3 walk doors. A sign would be put in between it. I think that sign would be where the overhead doors were, where the truck well was. Now that land would all be flat across that side of the building, and that the sign would be placed between 2 of the walk doors there with downward lighting to light up the sign. As with all special use uses, we're required to go through the general standards. I don't know if you want me to read through these. I've more or less concluded that they did meet the general standards. If you'd like me to read through them, I can, or if you want me to just pause for a minute on each slide, whatever you'd like me to do on this.
Just want him to pause, guys?
Yeah, he just passes fine.
Just pausing's
Okay.
fine, John.
The last one on this slide is not applicable. It's related to outdoor play areas if one exists. So it's just the first criteria.
And I think just for a frame of reference, this is essentially the last step when it comes to this type of use. Applicant had to get pre-qualified through the state of Michigan first before they could even apply to the city for a conditional license. And then the way that the city council set up the process through our ordinances, it established a marijuana subcommittee in which the chair of the planning commission and mayor are on, along with John, our public safety director, and myself, as well as the city attorney. And then there's a review process that board has within the autonomous authority to then grant the conditional license, assuming that it meets all the criteria. before it then goes back now to this venue for a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission. That's essentially the double check, and that the site plan and whatnot is what we would like it to be, and then you give them their blessing, and then they're good to go. So obviously, they would still need state approval through state inspections and whatnot, but the city is, for the most part, out of it at that point.
I will walk through this one and read it. It is pertinent to the conditions for approval. In addition to the general standards, our ordinance, we made changes to the zoning ordinance, which required certain things of marijuana micro-businesses, and I'll read through those. Micro-businesses may not be open to customers between the hours of 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. Micro-businesses may not receive deliveries between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. The exterior appearance of a micro-business must be compatible with surrounding businesses with respect to facade type, ground floor opacity, size and placement of signage, site layout, etc. The interior of the establishment must be arranged in a way such that neither marijuana nor marijuana-infused products are visible from the exterior of the establishment. Consumption of marijuana shall be prohibited in the establishment, and a sign shall be posted on the premises of each microbusiness indicating that consumption is prohibited on the premises. Microbusinesses shall continuously monitor the entire premises on which they are operated with surveillance systems that include security cameras. The 9 video recordings shall be maintained in a secure off-site location for a period of 14 days. The public or common areas of the microbusiness establishment must be separated from restricted or non-public areas of the marijuana establishment. No drive-through window on the portion of the premises occupied by a microbusiness establishment shall be permitted. Microbusinesses shall not allow the sale, consumption, or use of alcohol or tobacco products on the premises. This will show up later, but in the recommended motion, some of these we know that they're already in compliance with. Others would be just kind of ongoing things to monitor, but it will be a requirement in the motion of approval if you wish to approve it. Cultivation must occur within an enclosed building with exterior facades consisting of opaque materials typical of an industrial or commercial building. The roof of the building may be constructed of a rigid transport or translucent material designed to let in light, such as glass or rigid polycarbonate or fiberglass panels. Films or other non-rigid materials cannot be used to construct any component of the building's exterior structure. Cultivation must be conducted in a manner to minimize adverse impacts on the city's sanitary sewer. The city's Public Works Department shall review all pertinent information relating to sewer discharges and shall provide any pertinent comments to the Planning Commission. So that piece we'll probably have to, as we move forward, have utilities review any of the discharges from the facility.
I can address some of that now, if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So in regards to the cultivation occurring inside the building, the first point there, that's, if you look at our floor plan, it is back away from the storefront portion, and the roof is a fixed roof. It's already metal. There's not going to be any lighting from the outside. It's all going to be LED lights. So there won't be any opportunity for anybody to see in even from like a drone. It's going to be completely enclosed. And then as far as the city sewer, so the water that comes out of the plants is like a runoff. So let's say each plant gets maybe 3 gallons of water. You might get a quarter to a half a gallon of runoff water, which is and that water itself is has a nutrient in it. It's a safe chemical. There's very organic, so toilet water is more toxic than the chemical coming out of the plants. So that's addressing those 2 items. Any questions? Okay, go ahead, John.
And I have a recommended motion to approve the special land use permit for a marijuana microbusiness for Michelle Clark operating under the business name of Golden Shores Provisioning Center at 1649 Leeson Street as proposed in the application and subject to the ongoing compliance with all the marijuana microbusiness standards as contained in section 46-752 of the city's zoning ordinance. And with that, if you wanted to address what you came with tonight
Okay.
about a little more detail on the parking arrangement.
Also, if you don't mind, could you back up a couple slides? I wanted
Sure.
to make a point, a couple things.
What-
Go back one more if you would, please. Okay, one more. Okay, so the hours, 11 p.m. to 8 a.m., yeah, no one's going to be in there. We wanted to kind of cater to the second shift workers. So we were thinking about having a like a locker or like a Little Caesars hot and ready box. So if you placed an order, it was paid for, it was in that box. You had a code that let you into a very concealed or contained portion of the facility. If you look at the blueprint, it shows that where a customer could make a purchase. Let's say the store closed at 9, but they got off at 9:30. They could still go in to a locked portion of the building and access their purchase and then leave. So that was, I don't know if that's something that we would address here or just an idea that we had with to be a little more usable for the hours of the employees that would purchase. And then another item was the next slide, please. The state requires a 30-day retention of any video surveillance. Your ordinance says 14, but we as the state they require more than 14. It's 30. So
Jeff, of the 9 video cameras, how many of them are external?
probably only the ones that cover the entrance. So 1 to 2, and 9 is probably more than 9 inside, because there's one over every door in and out, and then there's multiple in certain rooms. So probably more like 30. That's your question.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Marcus?
Regarding ideal hours of operation, I'm almost thinking like a bank where I visited banks where you use an ATM card, you get into a secured vestibule.
Right.
And then, you can conduct your business after hours. What would be like an ideal lockdown situation where even that after hours use wouldn't be accessible? Right now, it's 11 o'clock is the cutoff time. Is there an ideal time that you were thinking of actually having a cutoff, or just a 24-hour available vestibule?
And this kind of caters to, the clients, the customers.
Right.
Because we know a lot of second shift workers in the city. So
And there are third shift workers.
yeah, right. So even better. So I wouldn't be opposed to having a 24-hour area where they could only access their purchased products. Let's say they made a purchase at noon and they didn't get off till midnight. So then they could go in at midnight with a key and a code, and they could access that. But the actual store where there's employees that they could walk in and make a purchase wouldn't be, maybe it's like most dispensaries are 9, 10 a.m. to 6, 7, 8, and I'd be willing, whatever the other dispensaries, whatever their times are, comply with whatever the city wants.
Well, and I think the way that we have it in here, it's until 11. John, if you want to go back. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if staffing would even happen. I don't think they want to work till 11. This isn't. I don't think it's.
So in terms of just giving direction to the board, you're looking for secured 24-hour access, basically through a
Yeah.
carded type system, and then having some kind of a lockbox to that degree.
Yeah, it'd be like a one-time code. You make a purchase. Here's your code to get into the facility, and then you have a certain, locker number 24, and then you have another code to get into your locker, and then you can leave. And it's something to cater to the employees that work past normal hours.
Joe?
Mr. Chair, maybe to Marcus, this seems a little beyond the planning commission, I guess, to me. If it fits the ordinance, great, and we approve the site plan, great. But if it doesn't fit the ordinance, sorry. I'm not sure, at least from my standpoint, that the planning commission should be deciding essentially for city council how these operations should operate.
What does the state say about your idea? Does the state have things in place about that type of access?
Honestly, we haven't even addressed it with the state. I mean, it has to start with you guys because as a city, you have the ultimate say. And they have talked about a drive-through through the state, allowing that, but clearly your ordinance states otherwise, so, you know.
I need to seek some clarification from Marcus.
This was right into the ordinance.
The zoning ordinance.
Council.
Marcus?
So I was just conferring with my development director on which board did what in terms of the timing and whatnot. John was saying that that was established via ordinance of the council. The question is whether or not, you know, the type of scenario that Mr. Dotson is suggesting, how is that defined? How will the city attorneys define that? Is it definable as the operations are opened, even though they're not, but yet you still have access to it? And so we'll have to figure that out. But for the moment, at least, assuming that this moves forward this evening, you know, you can operate up until 11 o'clock.
For sure.
So.
I had a question, Marcus. I need to seek some clarification. When the city council approved having the dispensaries within the city, that we were going to have the marijuana businesses within the city, we said that we were going to have 2 licenses for recreational and 2 for medical,
Yep. And 1 micro business.
and 1 micro business.
Yes.
Was retail always an aspect of the micro business?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank
Micro business under our code, which is under the original state definition, allows for the growing of a very small amount, processing of that amount, and then the retail sales of that amount, all under one roof. And because it allows for the growing of it, the city decided to classify it as an industrial use versus a use that could be down on Main Street because of the whole manufacturing part of that business. It does not allow, under the license category that we have, for the micro business to resell marijuana products from any other vendor or supplier. There has been some changes in state law that I believe would allow for that, but the current code that we have adopted that's in place connected to the license that Mr. Dotson has still precludes him from being able to bring in other people's product. It would still have to be everything that he sells there has to be made there, as I understand.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good question.
Marcus, if I may, at the June 28th meeting, I thought there was talk about another building to be built on property.
Yes, so at the June 28th marijuana subcommittee meeting, there were 2 conditional licenses granted. One was to Michelle Clark for the micro business, in which Jeff Dotson did the presentation there, as well as here tonight for. And tonight's public hearing is only in regard to the micro business. The second conditional license that was granted was for a Class C growing license. However, until such time that administratively we've been able to review the plans, and also until such time that Mr. Dotson can acquire the necessary processing license to make that business operable, it really won't be back before Planning Commission for further review, so, or consideration, I should say. But yes, so the site can accommodate both uses and both businesses. That was some pre-work that was done before Mr. Dotson applied for the growing license himself.
Thank you.
I tend to agree with Joe too on, like getting into the weeds here. That
No pun intended.
really, that was not intended.
I know.
But yay me. Yeah,
We can look that up, Mayor.
okay, thank you.
And review that with council down the road if that's something.
Thank you,
So,
yes.
yeah. So kind of just, yeah, we just disregard that for now because that's
Yep.
part of
Yeah.
stuff, so.
Yep.
Okay. Okay,
So if I can address the parking,
please.
So, as before, we were approved June last year, and, in Eli's business, he has other people that rent space inside, and he uses certain areas for his business as well, so, we acquired this, we were gonna lease this portion here in the middle, and then after, just people moving around inside the space, it was better that our space went to the outside. So that's why we, in the first approval we had, it was in the center, we moved to the outside, and then we eliminated the truck well and added the parking spaces. So from a storefront, this is actually great parking. It's really a fantastic venue and location. So it's easily hidden, we could put some trees, if arborvitae's to hide this, based on the city. We're really sensitive to what you want and what is gonna fit well in the community. Having, I've mentioned or saw many times how it doesn't change the aesthetics of the existing building in the area, so kinda want it to blend in, but still have it look nice and not like some dark old,
So people now will enter off the west or the back of the
Yeah,
building?
The west, yeah,
off
the west
back.
side, yeah.
So it won't interfere with the members' business. And so, and it's really like a easy access in and out,
Mhm.
good parking, good flow.
And that's all gravel, so is that gonna be paved or no?
No.
Oh. Okay.
Now we'll have, right, the curbside is big. You place an order and you call, they come out, bring your order out, you don't have to get out of the car.
Oh.
So each space will be identified, and then you'll have, the parking bumper, and then the only caveat is with gravel, the paint stripes that define the parking spaces may need to be redone, monthly or whatever, based on how it wears. And then if you turn around, the venue would look like that on the outside.
Yeah.
So the company logo has a marijuana leaf in the state of Michigan, which we removed. We thought for sensitivity of the city. Obviously, they put it back, but, we want it to look classy, not the place that you want to see that. So, the door to the left is employee entrance, and then the two doors with the awnings above. You walk in, checked in by security, and then you can exit the other door. So it's a nice flow.
Is one of those doors is existing, right, and you would create two more? Is that how it would work, or?
Well, that was in the middle of this space, so now that we shifted it down, we may need to add the third door.
Okay.
But that's the door.
The packet has a facilities plan C2 and a facilities plan B2.
I think that was the marijuana committee.
That's it?
It would have been their original submission to the marijuana committee.
Oh.
That's in there.
Yeah.
Mr. Baumann, that would have been a part of the original submission to the marijuana committee, I think.
Okay, perhaps before it changed to the outside of the building?
Yeah, and the marijuana committee doesn't look at facades or things of that nature, just whether or not they have met pre-qualifications of the state, that the property that they have an option on is within the proper zone for the use. And then obviously all the background and financials to make sure that they meet all the criteria set forth.
So which one is the active facilities plan?
C2 or B2?
They're different.
I'm not sure if it matters for our purposes, but.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
Great job.
would be a question, I think, for,
You see what we're talking?
Yeah. So it'd be the one with the restroom in the front.
Well, they're both in the front.
That's B2.
B2.
So that's the B2 here.
Yeah.
You see on C2, there's also a toilet in the front, just so you're.
Yep.
And the retail space in C2 is much larger than B2.
Oh, right.
This actually shows where it's on the building.
Yeah, actually, so it's the,
C2 must be the right one.
right.
C2 is the correct one.
Yeah, much larger.
Yeah.
You know, and that might, it's hard to judge how much traffic is gonna get, so we might change that, but it's, 34 by 20 is a nice size.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Marcus, question, either you or John. Currently, that is zoned,
Industrial.
so does, and once again, not a planning commission thing, to allow retail in industrial, does there need to be a zoning variance there also? Or is it all rolled into?
Yeah, so when the city council and the planning commission established the zoning for marijuana uses, all of the marijuana uses, at that point in time, when that was done, at this point, my goodness, I think maybe 3 years ago or so, maybe even 4, the micro business use was classified as an industrial use because of the growing and processing component of it. Other communities have not done so. They've allowed micro business uses to be in their like central business districts, but when City Council and Planning Commission put together recommendations, and then ultimately it went from Planning Commission back to City Council for ratification, that was how Cadillac chose to identify it. So no further variances or rezoning activities are necessary for this use.
And then, so looking, once again, as we address every time
Yep.
we look at, making a variance, does that, because that's all rolled in,
Mhm.
it's an industrial, somebody wants to come in next year and do some sort of retail sales of any nature in that industrial zone,
No, can't do it.
are they gonna have an argument? Well, you have retail sales here,
Yeah.
we have heavy industrial, we have truck traffic, but
Right.
why can they do a recreational and we can't?
Well, so when it comes to marijuana, there's only this one license that was created by the city. And so he has it, or his company has it. So if there was gonna be another marijuana type facility, or even another marijuana retail type facility, the other retail facilities are remanded to different zones, non-industrial. But when it comes to other, commercial retail or other retail type spots, I would say that, one, it would be up to definition of whether that fits into the industrial zone or not. I don't think it does. I'm not really certain what case law might be out there in terms of that kind of a challenge, to be honest with you. But, as with anything, if something comes our way and we have to, defend ourselves or explore some legal option or remedy, we certainly would. But I don't think we're going to be in that.
I think also for sake of it, this isn't a variance, this is a special use permit.
Right.
So
Right.
slightly different than giving a variance to the zoning.
Right.
You're approving something that fits within the zoning currently.
Yes, that's a good point of clarification too. Yep.
As defined as a micro business,
Yes.
which includes retail.
Specific. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
That's a good question. Important one.
But which could happen would be if someone came and wanted to just put in a grow facility in the industrial park, they could.
Yes.
It's true.
Yeah, growing, processing, micro business, secured transporters, and I'm going to perhaps use the wrong term, but basically laboratory or testing type facilities. Those license types under the Marijuana Act, on both sides of the aisle, both recreational or adult use and medical, are all of the what we're defining or classifying in Cadillac as the industrial type licenses, and those uses are required to be in the industrial zone. The only marijuana uses that are not eligible for that are just strictly retail shops only. And then the CBD areas, commercial business district areas of the city, is where we've allowed for those to go.
Who actually holds the license?
Michelle Clark.
Okay, because Mark, you kept saying you hold the license, so I wanted to,
Well,
He does for the grow operation, which is not before you tonight.
Yeah.
Michelle Clark and her
Okay.
company.
And the
owns
business
license for
operations.
this. Yeah.
and is it the individual or Clark Co.?
Clarko is Michelle Clark. Clarko is her LLC that holds the license.
So the LLC holds the license?
Correct.
Okay, but they are different, so I just want to make sure we're
Yeah.
being clear somewhat. Okay. And Clark Co. is the one who applied for the special use permit.
Right.
yes. Yes. Okay, anything else you need to tell us yet?
No, I think that
Before
covers it.
we open public hearings, anybody have any questions yet for Jeff before we open public hearing? Nope, okay, all right, thank you, Jeff. Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing, so anyone here in the audience wishing to speak in favor or against the special land use permit that we've been chatting about, please come forward. I know you guys are here for something else, but it's still nice to see people in our audience, 'cause we don't get that very often, okay. Okay, so hearing nothing, I'll go ahead at this time and close the public hearing, so that we can kick this around.
Could you bring up the motion, John,
Yep.
please? If you don't mind, Mr.
No.
Chair, excuse me.
No? Part of me thinks normal special land use permits go with the territory. Part of me thinks that that should not, so in the event they don't stay there, that shouldn't either. That's my 2 cents on special land use, 'cause typically it would stay there. Now we're holding the carrot out there for someone else that wasn't approved.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Special land use, if we approve this use for
Uh-huh.
this building, okay, but then they decide to go, theoretically, special land use would stay with that, am I
Mhm.
correct?
Stay
Mr.
with the
Wallace?
land.
So, we're leaving that open, if they
For another
decide.
micro grow.
Uh-huh, so do we wanna do that or not?
I don't
Yes,
think
Marcus?
that's-
Yeah, so
What?
I think, with all respect, I think you might be right but wrong. When it comes to this marijuana case, the licensing is specific to, in this instance, the Michelle Clark business for the provisioning, for the micro business that's there. So if the business dissolves or moves somewhere else outside of Cadillac, or even within Cadillac, as long as it's in another appropriate zone, whoever perhaps may want to use that property for a similar use would have to go through the entire process of getting another, conditional license from the state of Michigan, showing they're pre-qualified, then going to the marijuana committee and getting a license there, and then coming back here for a special use. So you're
Okay,
protected.
So I don't have to worry about that?
Nope, you don't have to worry about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Back to my question briefly, so the land use permit is not for Michelle Clark, it's for Clark Co. LLC, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Amend the motion.
Well, you want to be careful about the technicality. I'd hate to give it to Michelle Clark and then have Clark Co. want to operate it.
Yeah.
I think Michelle Clark wants to avoid the liability associated, so.
Yeah.
Good point.
So I would amend the motion. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions, Mr. Chair.
I only had one more thing to add as we were discussing this, just that the manner in which they fill in the truck well and the degree to which they, if they're going to saw cut the concrete or whatever, that the city's engineering consultant just review the final method for doing that to ensure that it's safe.
Okay. Well, that should be added in that motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make the motion in front of us as altered by changing Michelle Clark to Clark Co. LLC and adding the caveat that Mr. Wallace just mentioned related to the city engineer reviewing the alteration to the concrete on the west side of the building.
Truck well, yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll support.
Mr. Bunce? Okay. Abby, please.
All right. Rice,
Aye.
Putvin,
Yes.
Bunce,
Yes.
Bosher,
Yes.
Bilkins,
Yes.
and Bauman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Next on our agenda, new business, which is a permit of property use by the Chestnut Street boat launch area. Mr. Wallace is gearing up for that.
Where was this on Monday? I'm teasing.
Holy cow.
We did the process a little bit backwards, where city council for timing, city council considered this and approved it on their end last week.
Oh.
But I just winged it with my communication in the packet.
But he's a good winger.
I'm a good winger.
See.
So I was
Well, I think we know what the council wants to do, so let's,
all right, go ahead.
let's not delay too long on this.
Yeah, make it quick.
What gave it away? The exit marks? Oh,
Yes. No, council's approval is what did it for me.
well, okay. Yeah, okay. All right. So
Okay.
whoever wants to catch us up.
I can do that. Eli Hofert wishes to start a business that would need a site on near the lake for a rental business for kayaks, paddleboards, bicycles, and paddle boats. The reason why it's before you is because it's in the Park and Open Space District, and temporary uses have to be reviewed by Planning Commission and Council when it's in that district. So that's why it's before you. Eli's intent would be to temporarily store some of his inventory on site in a secured device that would also have a temporary sign affixed to it or adjacent that advertises the business. This activity would be a pilot project for 1 year, which would enable Mr. Hofer to gauge the demand for his new recreational activity and also provide the city an opportunity to evaluate this type of use along the shoreline. The proposed site that he's looking at is right there at the boat launch off of Chestnut. The setback distances you see there are 63 feet from the railroad, 64 feet from the edge of pavement on Chestnut, and 95 feet from the shoreline, to give you some idea of the area that he's looking at. So it wouldn't be butted right up against the parking stalls, but it would be sort of centralized in that space to some degree and away from the railroad and the roadway.
Slightly clearer than my ex.
That's what happens when you give it to a planner.
That's right.
And this is just an open spot. This is not, there's no structure there or anything, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You're gonna place something there though, right, Eli?
Correct, yes. Some sort of racking for the kayaks, paddleboard.
Will there be any lighting? Or are you gonna use the light off from
Like
the
you
boat
can-
launch area?
Well, I mean, typically, no. I mean, it's going to be during the day is when it will be utilized.
Staff has reviewed the proposed location and believes this to be the best location for this type of business. Staff also supports this request because it creates new lake-oriented recreational activities and has the potential to be an additional draw for residents and tourists alike. The City Council has approved a temporary permit for this proposed use, subject to Planning Commission approval. And the recommended motion to approve a temporary use for Eli Hofer to use a portion of the property near the Chestnut Street boat launch according to submitted site plan to operate a rental business of kayaks, paddleboards, bicycles, and paddle boats for a period of 1 year.
Can you help us understand, the council's already approved this, but as planning commission, help us understand, what are the ordinances, what are the guidelines on who can come forward and want to run a business on park and recreational property? How many? What types? Obviously, that must have been discussed if they already approved this, but help us to understand that.
So this is novel. It's a great question. Novel being that this is the first one. There are no restricted guidelines, specific to what this type of business is. Certainly, if somebody were to come and say, "Hey, we want to put a tiki bar," on the lakefront, that would not be something we would be recommending, but certainly something we could still explore how to do that if that were something that would come forward.
If they didn't want to sell alcohol.
Right. Well, if they didn't want to sell alcohol, we already have a code in place that calls for what we have named city-directed sites. Every year, we issue out a proposal asking people to bid. There are, I'm going to get the number wrong, but let's just say about a half a dozen sites throughout the city. There's one where there's a brat truck right now in the quote-unquote plaza area. There's another city-directed site just south of the pavilion that's available. There's one by the ADA Lakefront Playground that's available. And then there's one on the beach side of Kenwood Park, as well as on what we call the Heritage side, which is the more wooded side across the street from the beach side. And each of those sites allow for a motorized and non-motorized vehicle selling foodstuffs or other wares. So again, non-alcohol based. So if somebody wanted to have a hot dog cart or a slushy cart or a slushy truck or an ice cream truck, you can actually still to this day go and get a permit for that use. The type of use that Mr. Hoffert's looking at is outside of the food type use and is not something that would fit the mold of that program specifically, which is why we took it this route. And as the communication, which was copied in the Planning Commission's packet, was in the City Council packet last week, right now it's our understanding that Mr. Hoffert's going to be looking at using his Pine Street building for point of sales. And this would be an opportunity so that they're not having to run, however many feet it is, with the kayak or the paddle boat from Pine Street, to the lake. That way they can have a rack system temporarily throughout the day to have people access the equipment there.
And then is this site one of, would you say there was 5 available?
So if we're looking at, sites for people to sell foodstuffs, non-alcohol based, there's, I think, about 6 different sites throughout the city times 2, because each site we set aside to accommodate both a motorized, like food truck, as well as a trailer or a cart. And we have our very first one, and forgive me for not knowing the name of it, but they sell gourmet, what is it called?
Betty's Brats.
Betty's Brats,
Yeah.
right off of Harris and Lake Street, is a food cart or a non-motorized trailer. So that's
In this case, this isn't one of those 6 spots.
That's correct.
that's correct. Thank you. Yes, this is not one of those 6 spots. This is something outside of the parameters of that program, and that's why we're looking at this really as a pilot. Let's just see. He needs to see if the business model works, if it catches on, if it makes sense. We need to see, are we now going to get inundated with 1,001 requests? We just don't know. This is the first for all of us, and we figured we might as well just jump in and see what happens this first year out and go from there.
Okay, and that's where the question is. I think it's a phenomenal idea. I love the concept, but once again, trying to protect the decisions that we make
Right.
for future opening up the floodgates. So, for clarification, then this is just a 1-year pilot program that would not open up that floodgate to.
We
John
might be
wanted
here a
to
year
sell-
from now, Mr. Bosher, saying we'd like a second year. I hope we are.
Yep.
I just don't know.
And at that point would address, okay, we're gonna go from 6 sites to 8 sites, or some sort of
This is a
parameters so
Or
we don't
even,
have.
or even create a program
Yeah.
just for this, or maybe we only allow for 2 sites, I don't know, or 3
I mean,
sites.
the council really liked the idea, and it was very creative thinking on Eli's part. We want to encourage that fellowship and that activity down by the lake, and so this pilot program, we'll see if that need truly exists. And, you know, we would encourage other people to, you know, come up with good ideas like that. So,
But at the same time, we have to protect those that have brick and mortar businesses.
I agree.
Especially brick and mortar businesses on the lake, which we don't have a ton, you know, zoned that way. So opening up that floodgate to
right.
whatever somebody can dream up to do on city property for $200 a year.
Right, but what he was offering there isn't a building with brick and mortar that he would be competing with. But like with the food trucks, you know, we always have said that, you know, when we were creating the licenses very early on, it was like we didn't want our downtown restaurants to feel like we were going to have, you know, all these businesses popping up, food trucks popping up during the summer months, and then people would not be going to their businesses. And that was a big consideration that, you know, people, you know, they've invested in that brick and mortar, and we don't want to become competition for them.
But we do have 2 units. We have Cheryl's Landing, and we have Dockside, Lakeside Resort, whatever they're calling in the
The
center.
Cadillac Resort.
Once again, I love the concept downtown, but we have to look forward. We have to, I think we have to respect those brick and mortars that are on the water, paying the tax, trying to run their business of what we open up.
Sure. Well, like I said, this is just a pilot to see if the model works, to see if it works on our end as well. And, you know, assuming that it is received positively, if a formal program were to be created, similar to what we did with the whole food truck and food cart thing, it would be probably a similar codified system where, you know, there's a bidding process because there's only going to be 2 or 3 spots licensed out, and then that would be how it would work down the road. But I mean, right now it's just very premature.
Well, I think that'd be key too. I mean, to talk about it in council, to have the council decide this is where the city is going and making those decisions, Greg, which are good questions to ask. I mean,
Excellent,
if
yes. But
the
does
citizenry wants
is he
to-
competing with anything Cheryl does? Cheryl does the pontoons, I know,
And
but
kayaks.
she does do kayaks? Okay.
And
And I
Lakeside
know that
Resort
Lake
does.
Cadillac
Oh, they
does.
do.
Yeah. But there's nothing on the east side of the lake, so.
Okay.
Guys, does this fall within the railroad right away?
Don't believe so. We checked with Public Works. So I know that the railroad has a right-of-way and has a strip that goes from that building all the way south to basically just outside of the,
I thought they were 80
Just
feet
off
from the
the-
center of the
outside of the
tracks each
pavilion.
way at all road crossings.
Yeah.
And that would put you in it. And if so, does the state have input?
It would be the railroad MDOT division. Yeah. I don't know, did you hear anything back from them?
I don't know. I think at one point in time, there was an effort to codify our arrangement with the state for that land, and I'm not sure that it ever reached its end. So
Nothing where the state ever does.
Well, the nice thing is it's temporary, so Eli can move it if the
Yeah.
railroad says we want our 80 feet.
There was something from Whaley Road on the condos when they wanted to put those in there in the railroad. There was something that came up about that distance, so. But it's another matter.
I know
but
they're pretty
just
picky
dealt
about
with
it.
the railroad, yeah.
well, on the trailhead, I know we don't have to be that far off the railroad tracks for the parking lot for the trailhead that was approved by the railroad. I think we're, gosh, probably only maybe 20, 25 feet off the railway.
Don't say that out loud.
Question for you, Eli. So people have to come to Mitchell Street and then go down here and show they paid or something?
Not necessarily. I mean, things could be done by, I mean, that is an option, I guess. But they could probably do it on their phones, you know, call it in, and I just go down there and unlock it, or somebody goes down there to unlock the kayak, or maybe there's maybe we give them a code to open it up and a padlock, and they open it up and get the kayak and take it on the or the paddleboard. So I don't think they necessarily need to come down to the 301 North Mitchell.
Not that far.
Right. I guess maybe for life jackets or.
That's a long ways if you're paddling a kayak.
It's a little dry.
Or a paddle boat.
Unless you get the downpour, then you can make it down there.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for Eli hanging up there? No? Good? Everybody good?
Good idea.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would go ahead and make a motion to approve a temporary use for Eli Hoffert to use a portion of the property near the Chestnut Street Boat Launch, according to submitted site plan, to operate a rental business of kayaks, paddle boards, bicycles, and paddle boats for a period of 1 year.
Second?
Nice. Well, Abby, please.
Bauman,
Yes.
Bilkins,
Yes.
Bosher,
Yes.
Bunce,
Yes.
Putvin,
Yes.
and Rice.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just what you need, more work.
Oh, shit.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Yeah, careful what you wish for.
We won't say a word, Eli. Okay, moving along. Old business, nothing. Board member comments. Anyone?
It's good to have the band back together.
That's two. Yes. Anything new with the marketplace, meaning the outside marketplace, any as far as, that's under new owner, yes, no?
No.
People, no? People selling the,
No, the marketplace belongs to the city of Cadillac.
okay,
The market, the Cadillac Farmers Market,
yeah,
is owned by an LLC.
that's where I was hinting this.
Yeah, and so, gosh, this goes back better than a month ago. There was something in the paper and people were under the impression the city had sold the market to the farmer's market, and that is not a true statement.
They would have to have some deep pockets.
Yes, yes, no, the city owns the market.
And we rent it to the farmer's market group,
Yeah,
just like we'll rent it to anybody for any event, so.
Right.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for clarification. That's why I hit it all wrong.
Okay.
Anyone, anything else? That's good. Hopefully, we have good weather for Memorial Day, okay. Okay. Staff, any other communications?
No communications.
And my guess is this next one I get to is any other public comments this evening, because I still have people here that haven't said a word. So, if that's what you're here for, now is your opportunity. Come forward, just state your name. They used to have a pad there to write down an address, but maybe it's
It's
still
there.
there. Perfect, I can't see that from here.
I'm Troy Baxter. I pastor Cornerstone Church here in Cadillac. This is our 11th year. Cadillac has really been good to us. We love this city and just heavily invested in a number of things, ministries across a spectrum, including obviously church, and then the MOST program, mentoring of skilled trades. It is a mentoring for construction trades. We've worked on Long Road Distillery, the Cobbs Mitchell Building, the old City Hall, the Shea Locomotive, Canopy, Cadillac National Storage, just on the main drag, and there's about 30 other projects we've done over that period of time. But the reason I'm here tonight is because we were made aware that the city is considering revamping the master zoning plan. And there's a property that we have interest in, the old Cooley School, that currently is in an R2 zoning. I do know that the school board and the city work together about potentially looking at this for redevelopment of apartments. And we were involved in all of those meetings. from the beginning, dating back to 2017, expressing interest in this. And when the school came to the city, they did not consider our opportunity or proposal to relocate Cornerstone Ministries in the red building and operate a Head Start program in the tan building and provide a neighborhood park on the Marble Street side. So we went through the process, spent about $20,000 in going through the hoops for the school to consider our proposal, and included a housing portion of that over on Wright Street so the school could get taxes. So at any rate, the school chose someone else to develop that property, and we didn't really feel like we got a fair shake because our housing development was disallowed because it wasn't on the Cooley School property. In the process of our proposal, we did reach out to the city for the recreation plan, which the micro park would work well there. And the church would not require any zoning change. We'd have a special use permit. And we did have a commitment from Head Start for a 12-year lease on the annex building that would provide something that is a positive thing for the neighborhood. 38 signatures, 28 households around the school in the neighborhood want that zoning to remain R2. They do not want, and I presented that to Marcus and worked with John, and I believe Linda's got those signatures. Also, there's some neighbors here tonight that want to speak. There's not 28 households here tonight, but I'm sure there's letters and opportunity that as we work through the process of looking at the master zoning plan, please consider what the neighborhood really wants and what they've invested years of their life in their homes and why they live there instead of in the loft. And lastly, I know we're getting close to 3 minutes, there is less than a half a mile away 13-acre parcel available for development for apartments. And I spoke to that owner, that person that fronts on Cobbs, Mosser, and Copier. So that's an excellent site development. If we really are interested about making apartments available, that site is available also up on Diggins Hill and on Wright Street. So there's a total of 23 acres available that does not have to include Cooley School. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. Hi there.
Hi. I'm Linda Beal. I live right next door to the Cooley School, and when I get nervous, my voice sounds like this.
We're just
I have written to Mr. Wallace and to Mayor Filkins. I sent them an email last week because I didn't expect to be here tonight, but I drove like mad from Missouri to get here. So
you didn't bring law enforcement behind you.
No, I was lucky. No. Personally, I am really opposed to having the apartments and the 10 houses that are proposed in all the planning. I just can't even imagine having apartments there along with the 10 houses. Just last summer, 2 friends were rear-ended making a right into my driveway. The traffic on Granite is terrible, and then to add to that will just make it even worse. Our backyard is our oasis. We have vast flower gardens, a pool, a barrel sauna, and the second floor of the school looks right down into our yard. So we're gonna be living in a fishbowl. For my neighbors. That was my personal view, but for my neighbors, I have the signatures here.
It's okay technically for now, because we're just listening to you this evening, so, and I believe you. Okay.
For my neighbors, in the first 5 houses on the north side of Granite, there are 17 school-aged children. They don't have any place to play but their front yard, and those trucks just barrel down barrel down granite. So this would give them, if you pass the Cooley School at any time, you'll see them playing basketball or baseball in the front. They use the school grounds, but they need some place to play. And also, I forgot my notes. I guess that's all I have.
That's quite all right. You did very
Yes.
good, Linda. We
Thank you.
understand your positions.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks.
Hi there.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Cripps. I live on Marble Street, almost directly across from the Cooley School yard itself. As Linda said, there's no place in that neighborhood for kids to play. And you see kids over there all the time on the basketball court. Just yesterday, they had, I think my husband said he saw like 10 little 5-year-olds out there on the basketball court just riding their bikes around because it was safe. We don't approve, excuse me, the new zoning. We don't want to see more rentals in the area. We have far more than we need now. And we've lived in our house. My husband has lived in that house since he was born. So we'd like to keep the neighborhood quiet.
Understood.
And you don't want my letter either?
Your letter?
That we don't approve the rezoning?
Oh, well, in all honesty, that's not on our plate yet, so we are here to listen to you this evening,
Okay.
because that hasn't hit our plate yet. It's coming.
Could I ask a question? Why has this been kept so hush-hush? We saw one article in the paper about this and haven't seen anything since. We haven't had any letters from the city about what they were going to do, nothing.
Staff can field that.
There's nothing before us, so there's no,
This whole process has been before the school board and not before the city.
Okay.
And until somebody, I mean, the part that came before the city was years ago when we had the public meetings to develop the plan. And since then, we haven't been involved. That's why there's been nothing from the city.
Okay.
And there won't be anything from the city until somebody introduces something that asks us to do something.
and I can provide, Mr. Chair, during
Please, Marcus.
the next part of your agenda, some additional comments.
You lost me.
After public, typically you ask staff if there's any comments before you adjourn.
Oh,
I'm happy to,
okay, perfect. Thank you.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Philip Hayner. I live directly across the street from Cooley, and I'm actually a father of 6 of those 17 mentioned children.
Okay.
And it does go hand in hand that the area of the Cooley property is really the only place areas that's safe for our kids. There isn't a whole lot of yard in all of the homes in the area, so that open ground is where most of our kids, we cross them over the street, we let them ride in the parking lot, we let them play in the field, and to put in something like rentals or take up that ground and use it for structures is going to make it to where we're going to lose that space for our children. And so I am opposed to any kind of zoning change that would cause that to happen.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Perfect. That covers everyone. Okay. Now, having done that, so I can go like other business or something? or-
Right.
Okay, other business. Marcus, help me.
Sure, and just for benefit of Planning Commission, as our Community Development Director mentioned, the reason why there hasn't been any kind of public letter writing from the city to the neighborhood, referring to any kind of zoning change or anything. Because right now, that process has not matured to that point in time yet. So there's no official business before the Planning Commission regarding this matter. And to give the Planning Commission just some framework, some reference, back in the fall of 2018, the Cadillac Area Public Schools was in the midst of going through a significant process. They were looking at their major bond efforts to the community where they needed approval sought. In fact, at that point, they probably already had their approval, and this was subsequent to that, where they had made a promise to the community that they would try to very aggressively redevelop the McKinley School site and the Cooley School site. The school was successful in getting a micro grant from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation that put the city and the school together, along with our regional planning authority, an organization called Networks Northwest. Networks Northwest, back in 2018, came and essentially provided a public charrette, coincidentally happened to be at Cooley School, for both Cooley School project as well as the McKinley property, trying to identify what would be appropriate redevelopment type uses. That work product, after the public hearings took place as a part of that charrette's process, resulted in the school board creating a request for proposals that they issued out at least once, maybe twice. I couldn't tell you. Again, it's not a city project at all. It's not city-owned land, but their request for proposals used as a reference point the results of the public process that they went through looking at those two properties. And obviously, I'm fast-forwarding time because now we're in 2022. Mr. Baxter and another development team were analyzed by the schools based on qualifications as well as price. A different development team was awarded the project, which would certainly be contingent on a number of things falling into place. I couldn't sit here this evening and tell you exactly what all of that project entails. I believe it entails multifamily units as well as smaller single-family homes on that project site. But again, we don't actually have anything for me to tell you that it's been reviewed and that the site plan's ready for planning commission, consideration or anything of that ilk at this point. And I know that my comments perhaps seem a bit disjointed, but I think the takeaway is that there's nothing for planning commission or city council to actually consider until such time that there's something tangible in hand. If the zoning doesn't go through and the development team that was awarded the project through CAPS can't build what they want to build, I have no idea how the CAPS board will look at what to do with that property. I do not believe it's an automatic default that it goes to the other development team that had submitted. It would probably result in a rebooting of the process on their end as to how they would best move the property forward, try to sell it, redevelop it, you name it. So that is just supposed to be some background and framework.
So currently, there has not been a zoning change.
Correct.
Correct.
The city is looking at wholesale zoning changes. As you may or may not remember, we went through some significant changes to be classified as a redevelopment-ready community, and I think it was perhaps 72 hours after the state congratulated us virtually, because we were in the height of the pandemic when that happened, and said, by the way, there's now RRC 2.0. And not kidding, there's now the next evolution of that, which is going to require us to go through yet another recertification process to maintain that certification. And that's okay, because at the same time, we are certainly due, or perhaps even more than due, for a refreshment of our master plan, which certainly also includes zoning changes. And we have been working with a consultant, a local consultant now for the last couple of years, in helping us redo our zoning as well. So whether or not this comes forward as a part of a special project, or comes forward as a whole zoning update. We just don't know yet. It's all a work in progress, so.
So at a point, the city will put stuff in if this hits our table,
Okay.
okay? Just so y'all know.
Because
that
I
you-
know we've been notified on everything else that's gone out
Mhm.
there.
Yep.
Sure. Troy, what do you got?
Yes, is there a mandate for the city to reach out and publicize that they have a proposed updated master zoning plan? Because that's the concern of the neighborhood, is that, you know, we're doing a blanket zoning for the whole city, and the direction is to go into RM in that area. And just like a lot of the things that the school did with the city, the neighborhood was really not dialed into that. They don't want this to pass and be a done deal. That's why we're here today, because we want to be considered in that process.
Was the school aware that you were interested?
Absolutely,
Okay.
Yes.
absolutely.
Well, before I adjourn this thing, does anybody have anything else they would like to say?
I move to adjourn.
I know you're ready, Joe. So if everybody's good, we're out. Thank you all.